to a degree, but you know what? There's many times I've longed for the simplicity of our youth.
Yeah.
You know, the way life was so simple.
Yeah.
Like I say, I never grew up in a family with a car. So you biked, you walked, you used public transportation. Never thought anything of it. I never thought I was a kid from a disadvantaged family as far as, you know, I never missed a meal. I always had clean clothes on my body. Didn't always get what I asked for. Dad would always say, there's ways of getting what you want. The neighbor down the street needs, she needs her a snow shovel. The neighbor needs the grass cut. You know, so it taught me that if I wanted something real bad, I could probably find a way to get it by earning it. And maybe that's why I enjoyed my hockey career, because I feel like I earned it. Wasn't given to me.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't a golden boy that they said, oh, well, we need Joe on our team because his dad's rich and he'll sponsor the team. Or, you know, everywhere I went, I felt like, okay, I've earned my respect and I've earned my position. And that's, you know, I enjoyed my youth, you know, on a Saturday, you know, going down to the school grounds from morning till night, and if we weren't playing sports, we were sitting around telling stories or whatever, just very simple, but we created all those things ourselves. We didn't need somebody organizing a tournament or a game or a practice or whatever. We did all those things on our own, and I liked it. Yeah.
I know. I like the idea of not having a cell phone. You know.
I don't own one now. My wife has a cell phone. I don't own one.
Yeah, I
And
remember those days.
I'll tell you a story.
Well, you want to find me? Well.
Yeah.
I called you weren't home. Well,
Yeah.
I was out.
Yeah.
And they would hunt you down.
Yeah.
But they would hunt you down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way today. I'm here. People know where I am, and if I'm not here, then you really don't have to know where I am, because where I am, the people that I'm with, if it's only my wife, then that's where I want to be.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to find me. If you need me that bad, you'll find me.
Yeah.
Don't just, oh, well, let's call Joe. Talk to me about nothing.
Wherever you are, you're there.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
Mine's not something.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is, a few years ago now, I went to a Special Olympics event, and my wife says, well, take the phone, and I'll drop you off, and phone me when you're ready to come, and I'll pick you up, because you probably have a couple glasses of wine, and so you don't need to be driving. So I said, okay, fine. So at the end of the evening, I said, I've had enough, and I wasn't anywhere near drunk or anything, but it was just time to go home, and so I pulled out the phone, and I don't know what I did. I must have punched a dial that she had, you know, set.
Yeah.
And the woman answers the phone, and I said, is Darlene there? And no. And it was my wife's best friend. She says, Joe, do you want me to call Darlene? I said, yeah, Linda, please do. I'm having trouble with this cell phone. We laugh about it till this day, but I said, that's another good reason not to have a cell phone. I said, I'm phoning every woman in Winnipeg. I'm gonna end up dead. So I don't even know how to use one properly.
So how did you meet your wife, by the way? Let's just.
Well, at school. Yeah, we were high school sweethearts.
What
Yeah.
high school did you go to?
Miles Mac in East Kildonan. And yeah, so we, you know, we had our ins and outs as kids at school, and but finally we ended up really tight, and then her dad, who was a great athlete himself, ended up being involved in managing at the community club, and managed the hockey team I played on. So there was a bond there between him and I, which helped when I went away, and I went to Weyburn to play my junior, and so I said, well, maybe we should just maybe we should really find out whether we're for each other, and you can date here and I'll date there. And so anytime, she was maybe going to have a gentleman come home and meet mom and dad, this was her dad. Get him out! There's only one guy for you, and he's in Weyburn. So we laugh about that. But no, we gutted it out, and then, like I say, I went to Johnstown as a bachelor, and then she came, and it was a little difficult at the start there because of the phone ringing with people that shouldn't be phoning, knowing that I'm a married man. But we got through it, and I always joke. I said the thing that kept her and I together was I kept her about 1,600 miles away from her mother, and her mother always said she was one of those that you made your bed, you sleep in it.
Yeah.
And so we stuck it out, and like I say, I'm proudly we just passed our 49th anniversary in August, and looking forward to next year, and probably love each other more now than ever before. As time goes on, you just it grows, and I've been very fortunate to have her on many situations in my life that she stuck it out, but that's how we met. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Were the long distance phone calls, or did you, I guess back then, you
Well, I mean, there wasn't a lot of money involved, so I mean, I ended up.
Phone calls back then were a lot of money.
Well, yeah, compared to what we were making.
Yeah.
It was. It was funny how comparison. You talk about things. Everything has increased in cost, except that I think long distance phone calls are much cheaper today than 40 years ago.
Yeah, you could say, I'll be home next week.
Yeah.
And now it's like everything is okay. I'll tell you next month.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're getting, let's see, we're at the season 3. What did you think of the Canadian division? Was that that was the year that's when we didn't make the playoffs, right? We were in the Canadian, that was the first year, or the 1 year, the three divisions, right?
Yeah, we went, right. We won the O'Keefe Cup, which was emblematic of the Canadian division. So I have a framed print of the O'Keefe Cup for that year, and in fact the year that we won our first championship was also the year we won the Canadian division. But
what do you think of that idea? Was that?
You know what? It was okay, but again,
having 3 divisions was kind of funky. I don't even remember how that worked.
Yeah, it was. Because there wasn't enough teams, to be honest with you, to go that route. So I think once we had just the one group, and you play off according to standings and so forth. I always think that's the best way, unless you've got 30 teams or whatever they got now today, and you need to break it up into divisions and conferences and to come out to a conclusion. But yeah, it's I mean, you look back and you talk about the league and the quality of the league and the depth of the league, and I talk to a lot of customers, and they say that the hockey and the league was a lot better than anybody gave it credit for, and that was only natural because we were certainly a threat to the National Hockey League in the fact that we had no age limit on the draft, and so the young kids were being able to get started before they were 20, and so when you look at some of the players that eventually came from the National Hockey League to the World Hockey, and then certainly those youngsters that got their start in the World Hockey, I mean, we weren't the laughing stock of the world when it came to hockey. There was good teams. It was a good league. There was good players in it. We didn't have the firepower of the National Hockey League. We didn't have We didn't have the the television viewing audience that the National Hockey League did, and there was no way that they were ever going to give the World Hockey credit. And not until Glenn Sather came out and talked about how he was so proud of his Oilers and the fact that he tried to mold them after the concept that we had here in Winnipeg. And I mean, I'll tell you what, I don't think a guy could say anything greater about a team than what he when he paid us that compliment. And
that was the locker room, right? That was like
everybody saw. Yeah, and till this day, the people that were staunch NHL people and involved in the NHL, they'll never give the WHA any credit. But another comment that was made by a highly respected person in Scotty Bowman. He was in Winnipeg. He was in Winnipeg for a dinner, and he spoke at it. And of course, when he was still with Montreal, they were trying to get Lars-Erik Sjoberg, and probably would have got him. The stumbling block was Sjoberg wanted a 3-year contract, and Montreal was only willing to give him a 2-year contract.
What year was that?
They probably tried to get him probably just after our winning the first championship. And Scotty came to Winnipeg to scout him, and his words at the dinner were, I went back, and of course Pollock wanted to know what type of player Sjoberg was and what type of team Winnipeg was. And Scotty's response was, he said, they're good. He said, if the challenge came to play them, I think you better think about it. And so he paid us an awful nice, respectful comment when he said, no, that team was a pretty good hockey team. And so I think probably that resonated in the minds of a lot of hockey people. It was just that they were probably compressed to say nothing about us because of the fact that we were in opposition to them, we were a threat to them, and we were actually a thorn in their side as a league.
I remember Emil Francis, I think I read somewhere, he wrote, we couldn't play them, we couldn't compliment them because we've been slamming them for so long.
Yes.
There's no way we could have it exposed how good they were.
And of course, I think the other thing was when they accepted the 4 teams into the National Hockey League from the WHA and rated them. The reason they did that was that many of the struggling teams in the National Hockey League would have a tough time explaining to their fans, how can you allow this team to come from this league that you say was no good and they're beating the pants off us? So the only way they could make sure that wouldn't happen was minimize the amount of players they allowed those teams to come in with. And of course, Edmonton being the fortunate one and having Wayne there and then drafting well in the early 80s and surrounding Wayne with the type of people that consummated in Stanley Cups. So it was quite something to see. And as much as every Winnipegger hated Edmonton forever, I never felt as bad towards them as many of the fans did because of the fact that they were an old WHA team and the success they had was in part for the fact that they had a couple of guys that got their start in our league. And then, Glenn Sather, who I played with in Pittsburgh and then played against when he was an Oiler. And so, a lot of people didn't like Glenn, but Glenn is Glenn and very successful on and off the ice. And so, but yeah, it was a decision that I've never ever regretted. I've never looked back on my life and my career and said, you know, I would have been nice to stay in the National Hockey League and never do it. I think I did what I wanted to do, and to have lived those 7 years with that league and playing in my hometown, I don't think I could have done any better than what I did. I think it was something that was meant to be, and it's put me in good stead in my hometown, and I'd like to think that I will be remembered and appreciated and respected, and because I certainly loved the way I was treated by the team and by the fans and people of Winnipeg.
Okay, let's talk about general managers from day one. Let's start with the coaches first. Well, Bobby Hull was a player coach, but was he really a coach, or was that just a title they gave him?
Yeah, I think he minimized. I would guess that he and Nick McCoskey probably had conversations about how he wanted things to go, and but in the end, I mean, you've heard it a million times. Players play and coaches coach, and really at times there's coaches that don't coach. They're there, they're called a coach, but if you've got secretariat, you're not going to make a plow horse out of it. No. So you allow your players to play, and we did a lot of things off the cuff as to how we played, and I think it was just a matter of I can remember sitting on the bench because Ernie and I alternated every other game, and it was funny. We'd get a penalty or a power play, and Nick would be looking, and I'd be sitting there and I'd be yelling, okay, so and so and so and so and so and so. Yeah, I mean, it was automatic who was going to go. You knew who was going out on the power play, and you knew I was going out in the penalty kill, and here's Nick. He's trying to figure out who's supposed to do this and who's supposed to do that. So, but of course, Rudy Pillis got involved, and Rudy and my father-in-law were very, very good friends, Rudy would see that maybe I was down in the dumps about something, so he'd talk to the father-in-law and say, have a talk to that guy, have a talk to that guy. Or finally it got to the point that Rudy knew how to deal with me, and he called me Josie. He'd say, Josie, let's go have a little chat, and take me into his office and let me spill the beans and get it off my chest, and away we'd go from there. So it's how people treat you. But Bobby Crom was an effective coach. Bobby Crom, I think, thought he was the coach, and he was, except that Bobby Anders and Olfen, they played the way they wanted to play, and so I always like to say that Bobby Crom coached everybody but those guys. Those guys were going to go out and play the game that they wanted to play. Yeah. I think Crom, thought he coached them, but they coached themselves. There was no way you were going to coach a group like that, because they brought a style into hockey that was never seen before, and was totally off the wall. I mean, the crisscrossing and things they did as a line. I mean, you wonder why they didn't run into each other half the time, but they knew what they were doing, and then it was the opposition that was going nuts trying to figure out how to play against them. But Bobby Crom was a very fiery competitor, hated to lose, loved to win, and he fell in love with me, and I played 180 games in 2 years for him, and I had my struggles with him a couple of times, but in the end, he says, I'll play the player that I think is the best player, and so that's why I played lots. He felt that if he was going to win, he was going to have to go with me, and I appreciated that after all was said and done, it was taxing, it was tiring. I mean, I have so much respect for a guy like Marty Brodeur and players that could play as many games and season in and season out, because it's not easy. But but you know, the end result was that Bobby Crom got us to where we wanted to go, and that was playing the last game of the year. And he did it both years he was here. And then Larry Hillman, who I played with, wonderful guy, just absolutely a peach of a guy, but I don't think an effective coach because he was just too nice of a guy. And I think, you know, he probably thought he could coach because, you know, he was respected, but I think sometimes guys have to have a demeanor that's not the same as you are as a teammate and a player, and I don't, you know, he never really switched from that, and then of course Tommy McVie, who came in under John Ferguson and was so different, a comedian. Don't know whether he played the game for years, was a good player, but just had different philosophy about what you should do, what type of shape you should be in, and how you should approach things. But the end result was we won with him, and I don't know whether he got lucky, we got lucky, or what, but I mean...
Well, that year, like, you know, losing, like,
yeah.
I remember the parade, the 78 parade, and, you know, we're all in Mole Market Square starting to line up, and I'm thinking, God, we're losing this. We're losing these two guys.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, you know, who's Bobby going to play with now? And I was thinking, okay, well, you know, Kent Nielsen, he'll probably play with Kent, you know, and I remember just thinking, geez, why are we, you know, this is happy, but this is really sad. And then we found out after that summer we got Houston.
Yeah.
And I remember this is great, but
we went through, what we went through that year was almost like what we went through when the Europeans came over. All of a sudden you got 6 guys coming from a team that, I don't want to say we hated each other, but if there was a rivalry, the rivalry was with Houston and Winnipeg, more so than any other team.
yeah.
And all of a sudden now these guys are your teammates. You got to love them. And in the meantime, you wanted to cut their heads off for 6 years. And so it was tough. And I remember at Halloween, I thought, you know what, we got to do something to really try and bring this group and team together really tight. So we had a Halloween party at my place. And I said, the only way you could get in the house is you had to come dressed in a Halloween costume. Well, guys showed up and women showed up, and they played it. They played it to a T, because they did what I requested, to the point that even when they came, they switched partners so that, you know, maybe Terry Ruskowski would come in with Lukowicz's girlfriend, and they when they were dressed up and they had these outfits on and masks on, and we didn't know who was who. But in the end, we had a great time, tremendous time. It was a great evening, and whether that had any bearing on what transpired the rest of the year or not, I don't know. But to think that we could win it, beating Edmonton. I mean, if you look at the two rosters, I think man for man, Edmonton probably on paper looked a lot better than we did. But, you know, they brought in Gary Smith, and as flaky and different as Gary Smith was and is, he sort of, I don't know, he gave us a bit of a lift because he's just so different. I mean, I'm thinking that Marcus Matson or myself probably could have got the job done, but we'll never know. But anyways, Smitty played, and Edmonton didn't get the goaltending that they needed, and next thing you know, we were the winners, and so that was such a different year, and I mean, not everybody bought into Tom McVie, but in the end, I mean, you have to say that the coach had to have something going to get you guys to win, and so you say, yeah, I don't know what it was. I mean, I don't know what brought the team together enough to win it in the end, because there was no way we were the best team in the league. But I can look back and, even though Quebec was a hell of a team, the year they beat us, I still think we were as good as they were, but they beat us, and so it evened out in the end that maybe we snuck one that somebody else should have won. But it was nice to win the last one. It was nice to be able to call yourself a champion 3 times and the only team to do that, and make the final 5 out of 7 years, I think, speaks volumes about the success that we as players, the organization, the city, everybody can look back on those 7 years in the WHA and say it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it going?
You talked about the coaches. You want to talk about the managers?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to start off with, we had Anna Stukas, and I think, because Benny and Annis were friends from the past, and Stu could sell snow to Eskimos, and I think that's what, it wasn't a case of just saying, well, we got Bobby Hull, everybody buy a ticket. I mean, it certainly helped, but I mean, if you look back at the attendance records that first year, I mean, there was lots of nights we played to a building that was 2/3 full. So you'd think with the opportunity to see one of the greatest hockey players in the world night after night, that would be enough to entice people to buy a $5 ticket or a $4 ticket, because I think that's what the prices were back then, that you would have no problem filling a building. But it just didn't happen that way. I mean, we got great support in the playoffs, and as time went on, obviously it became a ticket to have in Winnipeg. But I mean, I think that I think the biggest break that the organization got was when Jerry Wilson convinced them that they had to take a look at Anders and Ulf and Shu and just be open-minded to the fact that these guys can play. And that was probably the one thing that was the most beneficial to the organization, outside of the fact that we could start with Bobby Hull. Because, I mean, all the teams, all the organizations had the same chance of trying to go out and entice a good player to come from the National Hockey League, or they could go out and try and sign an underage player that could get a start. I mean, but even so, I mean, when Wayne came in, and yeah, sure, he was, when he went from Indianapolis to Edmonton, he showed signs of being a player that was had a lot of skill and ability. But even at that time, what he ended up being could never have been projected. Mark Messier, I think, scored 1 goal his first year in the WHA, and then you look at guys like Michel Goulet and Mike Gartner, and
amazing. Gartner's amazing consistency throughout his career.
Yeah, so I mean, when Mark Napier and guys like that, and Rod Langway, and I mean, young players that got their start. So, you know, I think we in Winnipeg, you know, we're fortunate that Dr. Jerry Wilson was in Sweden and struck up a friendship with these people and saw that they could play the game. They knew how to play hockey and encouraged our hockey department to take a look at these guys and give them a chance. And of course, we know what happened. So